get it. Microphone check. Baby, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
you are now rocking with the best.
It's not some
Baby. One time.
still shining.
Respect my swag.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
and this is
Another episode.
a swingers,
After dark. What time is it? It's time to get live.
and this is your host. Not some baby.
Let's go, champ.
Microphone check 1 2 1 2. This is your host, Not Some baby, and this is another episode of Swingers After Dark. And I'm with Mistress Crush. Mistress Crush. Mistress Crush. That's
I'm
OS.
here.
Testing. Earth to Mistress
I'm
Crush.
here. I didn't go anywhere.
I gotta say Earth to Mistress Crush because she's out of this world. You feel me? She's not a Martian. She's from Venus. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they call y'all Venetian. I don't know. But I know that you're from a different planet. You know what I'm saying? You're from a different planet. So Mistress Crush,
Yes.
you know, I know you're into BDSM. You're a mistress. I
am.
know this. Everybody knows this. If you don't know, now you know. and at swing parties, you know, a lot of dudes and chicks, they don't know how to keep their hands to themselves. Like when we grew up,
Unfortunately.
one of the things that our mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles and cousins and family members and relatives and neighbors and the community at large, one of the first things that they told us is keep your hands to yourself. But a lot of people at swing parties, they didn't get the memo, or they were not raised right, or even if they were raised right, all those principalities, all those principles gets thrown out the window for some strange reason. So I just want to chop it up with you because, like, I remember when I saw you at Funcation, and I had enough sense to not approach you while you was working because you're always busy. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna catch her when the dust settles, when
Right.
she's done. But you have a lot of motherfuckers, they have no sense of self-awareness. Either they have no sense of awareness or they so narcissistic to the point where they don't give a fuck about you, about what you're doing. It's all about them. It's all about their lust, desires, and their purpose of why they're in your face. So I know you experience.
I know this is gonna sound so bad, but every party I go to, it's one lady that goes to every event. Every time she sees me, she either touches me or she touches my stuff. And it is so irritating to give her that reminder. But then I always remember too, every time I see her, she's inebriated. It's frustrating because I'm like, hey, please don't grab my flogger, don't grab my paddle. I went to an event in Ohio. She was there at that party. She saw me, and I had my hair in long braided beaded. And this was right before I cut my hair a couple of weeks ago. And she just was like, she was grabbing my hair, and I'm just like, calm down. So it's not just, it's a people issue. It's not a gender issue. It's just, some people don't know what it means to obtain consent to get into someone's personal space. So
I'm glad you said that because a lot of dudes, we get the main flack about, touching before you ask. One of the main 3 rules of the lifestyle is ask before you touch.
Correct.
One of the 3 major rules, the 3 major rules in my opinion, I mean, there are a lot of rules that people have to set some type of parameters and boundaries, but the main 3, in my personal opinion, are ask before you touch. If you're interested in playing with somebody who's in a couple, speak to the couple together so they can be comfortable with you, even if they have a hall pass to do their thing.
Yeah.
And the third one is, if you see somebody playing in a playroom, shut up.
Don't touch them.
Yes, get them 3 feet.
It's people that will see two people doing anything and they will touch that one of the two parties. And I'm just like, that is so rude and so disruptive. It's not a part of something that I would do. I'm a hugger. I'm a cuddle touch person. But I don't touch people without consent. Anybody who knows me and says, they see me in person, always ask, hey, is it okay to hug you? I'm a hugger. Or, hey, come here, give me a hug. I'm not a person that's like, I just don't touch anyone without consent. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. I don't care how fine you are. I just don't touch people without their consent, because you never know how that's going to be interpreted. You never know what someone else is going through. You never know if they're even receptive to you touching them. I don't have that thing in my mind where I'm like, I'm so fine, everybody gonna let me touch them. That's never registered for me. So I always ask.
I'm sure that people got common sense. I know common sense is not as common nowadays, but I think people got common sense to not touch. Asking before you touch. But why do you think that a lot of people, male and female, bypass that pillar of the lifestyle, of the swing lifestyle rule book?
You know what? Familiarity breeds some things, and sometimes people just aren't really aware. A lot of times when you guys see me at events, it's because the host either wants me to host the newbie class, or they want me to host a consent class, like being able to understand what awareness is about, being self-aware for yourself, like how to, build and respect your own boundaries, and also respecting the boundaries of others. I hosted at this past fall vacation in October of 2021, a consent class. It was about an hour long, and it talked about what consent is and do you have mutual consent. And I always encourage people to get enthusiastic yeses before proceeding with anything, whether it's LS or hugs or otherwise.
What did you say, whether it's LS or what?
I always try to get people to get enthusiastic yeses when they're obtaining consent, so that there's like no mistake. Because some people don't know how to say no. And I want you to, I try to teach people like what visual cues you have when you're obtaining consent and the person may be afraid or intimidated to tell you no, because they don't want to seem rude or standoffish, because everybody's there to kind of socialize, right? But in that consent class, we talk about, is it a hard yes or is it a hard no? Is it a soft yes or is it a soft no? Sometimes somebody might say something like, maybe later. Well, that's a soft yes and a soft no, because you don't have full or you have not obtained consent. For me, my boundaries are somewhat looser because I have to do a lot of peopling at events where I have to talk to them, just like I'm talking to you now in this interview. I have to answer questions, and sometimes questions can be really intimate. So I have to be kind of away from people to, be in their personal space to answer them, right? But I try to respect boundaries, my own boundaries, because it makes it very, very clear that what your boundaries are with me. Like you said, when you first saw me, you knew touching me was not an option without permission. That's because I have a personality that conveys that permission has to be sought before you can approach me like that. And you also probably noticed I don't approach others like that. If I talk to you, if I want to, be in an intimate space with you, we have a lot of discussion beforehand, right? We don't just, jump into it. But in LS, a lot of people skip the formalities of being in intimate spaces because they think that if they're at a party, that consent barrier is already down because we're wearing lingerie or hardly anything, especially when you have like the mandatory dress downs and things like that. which I think is a part of breaking some consent, but I'll touch back on that later. It's people having this disruption visually, right? Where everything is out in the open, but they think that they have access to what's out in the open. So I try to tell people to treat women and men at lifestyle parties as if you're in a museum. Try not to touch it unless there's a sign or a signal or somebody saying that you can touch something. Sometimes you go to a museum and it's an art exhibit where you can spin it or push a button or do something like that. And there's other art that's kind of roped off. Like you can see everything, but it's roped off. So just make sure that you're asking, because it's just the most polite way to get to know somebody if that's what you're trying to do.
Listen, I'm like, fuck that. Don't touch me. Like, I don't care if you think I'm rude, standoffish. I don't give a fuck.
Sometimes you have to be rude. Sometimes you have to be, but it's not always necessary. I've seen women in LS parties just walk up to men that they've never met and lick a nipple. Some men don't like that. I'm just saying.
That happened to me. Like, chicks, they think because we're men, we don't care, and because they think
who's touching you, like who's touching you,
it gives them carte blanche, or the right of way, or the green light, or the go ahead to touch me. But I'm like, who's to say that I'm feeling you for you to touch me?
Right.
You could be hideous to me. I don't, especially if you're handsome looking. If you're a chick,
I have a
handsome.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a lot of men. Like I like locks. I like men who have locks. I just like them. I like men with nice hair, period, or just some hair. So I am excited to get the opportunity to touch their hair, but I don't touch it unless I ask permission first. I had a guy that I spent some time with out of Kentucky. He has the most beautiful head of hair ever. It's like a lion's mane. It's beautiful. But he was like, oh, you didn't touch my hair. I'm like, I didn't know if you were okay with that. Because I know, like for me, before I cut my hair off, one of the biggest reasons I cut my hair off 2 weeks ago was because I went to an event and everybody kept touching my hair. And I was just so irritated and so unnerved that when I got home, I shaved my hair off. I don't want anyone touching my hair because they pull it. They don't like run their fingers through it. They're actually pulling it. And I'm tender-headed, so I don't like that. So even when my hair is longer, or even though it's short now, if you want to touch my hair, ask me, but don't like pull it or yank it. Don't just walk up behind me and give me touch my hair. I don't like that. I don't like my ears touched. And when I hug people, sometimes they always want to like kiss an earlobe. That's nauseating for me. It makes me want to throw up.
Were there ever times when dudes try to be touchy-feely during your sessions, your BDSM sessions?
Yes. So I'm a cuddle therapist too. And I have sessions where before we start, when I do a cuddle session with anyone, I tell them, if you are comfortable being nude, you can be, but I'm not going to be nude because this is about me giving you some positive, loving, platonic touch. And this is not a sexual thing. Now, if you hired me because you're sexually attracted to me, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm extremely flattered, but I'm not really interested. My goal during a touch session is so that you feel good about yourself and that you realize that you're worthy of being hugged and being close to and loved on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be sexual activity to happen for that to happen. I am not, I'm not always receptive to sexual touch. I'm super particular about who I allow access to my body. You can look at it all you want to, just don't bother it, So it's a challenge because I don't necessarily dress risque. When I go to LS parties, I dress up, of course, and it's risque for me because I am Muslim and I'm supposed to be in hijab. But one of the reasons I stopped wearing hijab to lifestyle events is because I don't want to misrepresent my religion by being in a space that is not Islamically correct and then looking like a Muslima while I'm not practicing. Like I'm practicing, but I'm not doing what is within the practices of Islam. So now I don't really wear hijab if I go to an event, but in my regular daily life, I wear hijab 24/7. But when I go to events, I try to, kind of blend in. I still don't blend in. I still kind of stick out. But that's also because I don't feel like mandatory dress down is applicable to me. Why? Because you don't have consent to determine what my outfit is. I'm not dressing down because I'm not comfortable dressing down. And it's just a me thing. I don't feel like everyone is supposed to have access to me, even though this is that type of party or an event or it's an adult situation. I still like the option of saying no. I have a large ass. Like, it's huge.
Wait.
People like to grab it or pinch it. It drives me insane.
Wait. We got to get those measurements. What is the measurements of the buttocks?
Okay. So around, it's 52 inches. And then my waist is 40 inches. Well, now I've lost some weight. So actually it's down to 37. And then my bust size is a 44. So 44, 37, 52. Okay. And I know you're very enticing. So regardless of being attractive, do you think that the reason why a lot of people are touchy-feely and they feel like that they have sexual access at an LS party is because it's like they don't get any? It's like they're so I don't think that a lot of people have sex outside of LS parties. Some, unless they're in couples or unless they're coupled up, a lot of people just don't get the opportunity to because of work or because they're not really interested. Dating when you're not vanilla is hard. Even for me, like, it's hard because if a person is not within the lifestyle, they don't really understand what you're doing or what your purpose is for being there. They may or may not want to date you because you attend these events, right? So you want to be your true self with somebody, but you don't always have the opportunity to be that way. And that can be frustrating. And then there's a lot of social rules that happen outside of LS that don't always happen at LS parties. Like, you can have sex with a person the first time you meet them or within hours or minutes of meeting them. And it doesn't have to mean anything. And you don't have to become attached or continue communication with them. And outside of that, like in vanilla or traditional meeting with people, even if you are sexually interested in a person, you have to work a little bit harder to earn that attention or that affection or that time. And also, too, if the only thing that you want is that you may be viewed a little bit differently or odd, you may be with women, it's different because we have that double standard. I can't just walk up to a guy outside of an LS party and be like, hey, you want to come to my room? Or, hey, let's go to your room. Because outside of that, it's like, are you a hoe? Are you trying to take my money? Are you a slut? Like that. There's a negative connotation with being sexually free and embracing that. So in an LS situation, you're not really looked at in a negative light when that's what you want to do. But in non-LS situations, you're not allowed to be that person, that sexual person that you're probably wanting to be, or that you actually are, but you're only allowed to be that way in an LS environment. But those social rules still apply, though. You still can't just caveman, your way to spending time with somebody. A lot of the biggest misconception I've seen in LS is that they think that men are for everybody, and that's not necessarily true. Men have standards and particulars and things like that too, and they also have people that they are interested in and definitely not interested in. So you have to see where you land on that. Now, with the other thing too, I feel like sometimes when I go to parties, the women are more aggressive than the men are. Men will be like, hey, would you like me to get you a bottle of water? They're more open to having a conversation with me. Women are just like, they want to stick their hands in your cleavage. or they want to play in your hair. They want to hug you and do all this other stuff. So it's very confusing because outside of that, you would never really see women just like walk up to girls and start touching them, or have a girl in your face like that. I get hit on more by women than men anyway, so it's still different for me. Because like I said, I am Muslim and I am practicing. So in Islamic settings, men aren't even allowed to be in personal spaces of women unless they have, unless they're married to them, or unless they have a close family relationship with them, like an uncle or brother. We can't even be alone with our male cousins. So it's very different. It's completely night and day.
Why do you think women are comfortable with being touchy-feely as opposed in contrast to, I know you kind of touched on it because
socially women are not expected to be, aggressive sexually. That's not always true. That's not always the case. But socially, we've been conditioned to believe that women are the weaker sex, that women are not aggressive, that women are not, the dominating force. And the reality of it is, like, when you go to different parties, like, I travel across the country, it's so different from coast to coast what the social expectations are. Like, when I go to the East Coast, the women are the ones throwing the hints about who they want to be with, and even if it's usually a girl, those girls decide if they want to like play with the guy. It's not like the guys are picking and choosing who they want to hang out with. You know what I mean? Like, their their participation is not in the decision making process. It's after the fact, right? In the Midwest, men tend to be very conservative and polite. And women have to say, I want to do this with you, or I want to, spend time with you, because those men socially have been conditioned to not be vulgar or disrespectful towards women. And then you go a little bit north, where it's not Midwest, like I'm saying, like Detroit, like up north, in New York, those areas up northern Ohio and stuff like that. Those men tend to be a little bit more verbal about what they're looking for, what they want to do, what their expectations are. But then you go down south, and it's almost like they're dating somebody at an LS party. They're like, let me make sure this woman gets food. Let me make sure that she is comfortable. They plan it a little bit better.
That's the Southern hospitality,
right? So the difference, that's part of the difference. And then they're pickier about who they want. So they want the person at the party to look a certain way, but they don't want you to act a certain way, like in chat groups and things like that. They're looking for the secret gardens as opposed to the public ones. And also too, I see that a lot of Southern play parties, a lot of them are really coupled up. They're more of a couple swap group. Midwest, South Midwest is like a really good mix of singles and couples. So there's a lot of variety to kind of look forward to. But the biggest difference I've seen is like that South Midwest area, because like I said, the men are very conservative, extremely polite, and they don't always express disinterest in women, where women, it feels like it's almost like they're kind of gassing them up. Like, the women can be aggressive and vulgar, but nobody's really checking them about their behaviors, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, nobody's telling them, slow down. But not for nothing, I remember when I went to a dungeon in Atlanta, and this chick was straight up she was damn near molesting my date. You know what I'm saying? I had to tell her to fall back. Right. It was a chick, you know what I'm saying? She was just all up on my date. And later that night, her homegirl, told the shorty who were pushing up on my date, her homegirl told her, yo, you doing too much. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you got to check, like, women got to check their fellow sisters. Just like how we hold men accountable, the women got to hold other women accountable, because just because you're a female, that doesn't give you the green light to be touchy-feely. Just because there's something.
It's really upsetting, because when you have women who are aggressive, how do you really handle it? Because if a man is aggressive at a party and the party has security, they're going to kick his ass, right? If a woman is aggressive, you don't want to hit a lady. You don't want to hit a woman. You don't want to, like, act a fool with her because she is a woman, right? So to me, that double standard, I don't like it. And if you ever get a chance to, who I would recommend that you talk to as well, you would probably be really good to talk to Lakita, the queen of Clubhouse Kentucky, because she has to deal with that, and she normally has to deal with when the women are aggressive. She's the one who has to handle that, because the men are, like I said, in that area, in that Kentucky, Louisville, Ohio area, they're just really polite. They're really not aggressive towards women. They're just not aggressive. They're very, very conservative. They're very, very polite. They're literally just sweet gentlemen. So they don't really want to get into an altercation with a woman. But it is women that attend those parties. They come from other places. They attend, but they can be physically aggressive, and it's really bad. I mean, I heard about an instance at an event where a female almost, I think to me it would have been sexual assault. She was, she almost sodomized a man, and he had to pull a gun on her. That is scary for me, because you don't want somebody to have that type of reaction, especially if you're a host of an event or if you're attending the event, because anything can go wrong when you have people who are scared, right? But women can be aggressors. Women can be the people that are not, following the guidelines of consent. I'm not one of those women, but if you decide to be one of those women with me, the same with men, that floor can come up very fast for you. I don't even play that game.
And it's crazy because, but not for nothing, a lot of people who go to these LS events, they have no business going because they're not vetted, and they homeboys or homegirls was like, yo, this is a party, this is a fuck party, it's going to be dudes, it's going to be naked chicks, come through. And because they have this misconception of what the LS is, and they don't have any foundation or rules of etiquette, they think they think everybody's up for grabs. They could just do anything. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I think it's important. Like, I don't want to blame hosts or anything like that. I think it's important to always leave room for information, for like people to be educated at events. And I'm not talking about like, oh, it's a one day party. No. I'm talking about like when you're doing a hotel takeover, or you're doing something where a large group of people are spending the weekend together. Make that time, even if it's just 45 minutes, to go over what the basic rules of consent are, and to have people ask and answer questions so that everybody knows, because it helps to avoid problems. I don't, like I said, I just don't touch men. Because I'm a flirt, but I'm not a physical flirt. Like, I'll say something, kind of flirty, but I'm not a person that will say something if there's no intention behind it. So that's me. But there's other women who flirt a little bit harder. They do a little bit more proactive flirting, and that can be misinterpreted, and it ends up with some guy that's like thinking one thing, but he didn't get consent, and then it's something else. The other thing too, I think people often think about consent being stuff like date rape, drugs, and stuff like that. That still does happen, which is crazy to me, but not as often as like people are just aware. It's unnerving for me when people try to blame their actions or behaviors on alcohol or marijuana use or whatever use, because in the end of the day, you're still an adult. You understand that people have the right to personal space, and you should respect it. And if you're not asking, then you need to. I mean, even if you think that something is set up, or you think that you had communicated that you were interested, I just if I see you at a party, I'm probably not going to bother you. I'll text you. If I have your number, I'll text you if I want to spend some time with you. But I'm not going to be in your face, because I don't want to detract from you having opportunities with other women. Because sometimes other women aren't interested if they think that another woman is like in that area or in that space. So I've had lovers that attended events with me, but we weren't together. We weren't a couple. We had our own rooms, own spaces, on our own whatever, right? But I wasn't in that person's face during the event, because I don't want women to assume that if this person is spending time with me, that they don't have access to that person. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So what?
So I want them to have a good time too, but I don't want to detract. I don't want them to not end up having a good time or only having a good time with me when they came to enjoy themselves.
Okay.
You know.
So what jewel would you give somebody who got the urge to be touchy-feely? Because you already talked about the consent, like how to reject somebody. I just laugh it off.
So here's some tools. Here's some tools you can use. If you're at a party or an event and someone is trying to get a little bit closer to you, just take a step back. If they're still coming forward to you, put your hand out. Like, hey, this is close enough. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be like, get your hands up, a fucking nigga. Like, you don't have to do that. But you can do some physical things that signify no. Stepping away from a person instead of stepping closer to them signifies you're either not interested or they are too close. That's why you're stepping back. You're putting your arm out and signifying that this is the distance that I'm comfortable with you being at. Like, this is how far away you need to be away from me. If somebody's trying to grab, because what happens with men, because men don't get this part of the touchy-feely, men tend to grab areas that are for the lovers, and we're not at that stage. They like to grab the small of your back or your waist or the cusp of your ass or the top of your ass or, that type of stuff. I would say keep a distance. Like if you go to church, you know how that pastor's wife, you're not going to be up on the pastor's wife. Pretend like every woman is the pastor's wife. And if you're interested in her, have a verbal conversation first before you approach her. That's my advice. But, everybody may not be okay with that. Maybe some women need a more subtle approach. For me, if you are interested in me, you need to have a conversation with me. You can't just walk up on me, touching me. I really will knock the shit out of you. I don't have any problems with fighting a man. But I've never had to do that. I've only had to do that once in like maybe 10 years. And that was because I was flogging somebody and he got behind me and he just like rubbed his dick on my back. And I just was like, what in the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do that? And when I asked him to move, he was like, I'm going to get you later. I'm like, no, you're not. We're not hanging out. I don't want you. I'm not interested. And I said those things to him. And then I said, I'm in the middle of a scene. Please don't touch me. Don't touch her. So the girl that I had tied up, he went around me to touch her. And I decked his ass. Because during a scene in a dungeon, you're not supposed to touch anyone. It's distracting. The person may not have given you consent. I'm responsible for her or him, whoever I'm playing with. It's just rude. It's really rude. So yes, I did hit him. But I haven't had to do that, but maybe once twice.
And what did he do in response?
Well, he was drunk, so he got that knockout hit.
Oh, well, you should have booty bumped him to knock him into next week.
Oh no, because if I booty bump somebody, they'll misinterpret it. I'll tell you about a story later, not on this interview, but later on, about somebody telling me that I sexually assaulted them because my ass touched them. I was standing still, my booty was not moving. They said I sexually assaulted them because my ass touched them. They walked past it. So I don't booty bump people. I don't hip bump them. I don't encourage movement or gyration or any of that stuff, because then they'll be like, oh, she was twerking on me. Nope, my ass was not moving. It was not bothering you. Do not bother it. Like, it's that part is crazy to me. But yeah, it's so many things that can go wrong. Now, if it's a woman, like ladies, if it's a woman that's touching you, you just literally grab her by the wrist and say, no, thank you. Like, I'm not interested. You don't have to be rude. Now, if you get to a person, you said no, and they're persisting, then you can get rude and you can get loud. You like, get the fuck off me. Don't touch me. You need to back up. And I guarantee they're going to make that surprise look like, oh my God, you don't have to be like that. Well, I asked you not to touch me in a normal tone and you didn't respect that.
You know what they say? Sometimes, The inner beast gotta listen. Some people respect disrespect, and sometimes you gotta act out of character to put your foot down so they can know the business. You feel me? And on that note, this has been another episode of Swingers After Dark, and this is your host, Not Son Baby. Check out my website at www.notsonbase.com. That's www.nahsunblaze.com, and check out my ebook, Fuck. Yes, you heard right, F-U-C-K, Fuck. It's on Nook, Kindle, iBooks, Google Play. Go get it. It'll make you say, na 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 na, ow. And shoot me an email at swingpodcast@gmail.com. That's swingpodcast@gmail.com. Hit me up with any questions or concerns that you may have. Rate, share, subscribe, and comment on this podcast. Dig. And on that note, until next time, peace.
Wow.
Yeah, so what you think?
Yeah, that's dope, man. I like it, man.
Yeah,
I like it. I said, yeah, I like that, man. That was dope, man.
Yeah, I gotta edit this bitch, and this won't be out until like the summer, because I record in batches.